The borrower is slave to the lender. Dave Ramsey has built a financial empire on that single sentence, repeated it in stadiums, on radio, across millions of books. But he did not write it. King Solomon wrote it 3,000 years ago, and almost nobody who quotes it understands what the word slave was actually describing. It was not a metaphor. It was a legal contract. And once you see the original mechanism, you will understand why debt does something to your life that no interest rate calculator can measure. Let me show you exactly what most people miss. Proverbs 22:7. Full verse. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Ramsey quotes the second half. He almost never quotes the first, and that first half is the diagnosis. Because Solomon is not making two separate observations. He is describing a single machine with two gears. The rich rule, the poor are ruled. And the transmission that connects them, the thing that turns a free man into a governed one, is the loan. This is not motivational. This is structural. Consider what the Hebrew word for slave, ebed, meant in Solomon's economy. It did not mean chains. It meant a person whose future labor had been pre-committed to someone else's decisions. A slave woke up and worked, but the fruit of that work was owed before the sun rose. He was not resting. He was servicing an obligation he took on in the past. Now look at your own paycheck. Here is what no one tells you. When you carry debt, you are not the owner of your income. You are the administrator of it. The money arrives in your account, and it is already spoken for. The car, the card, the loan, the financed furniture. You touch it for a moment on its way to someone else. Solomon did not need a spreadsheet to see this. He watched it happen in his own kingdom, across trade routes that stretched from Ophir to Tyre, and he compressed the entire dynamic into 11 words. But here is where it gets surgical. Ramsey's system, the debt snowball, the baby steps, the envelopes, is genuinely useful. I want to be fair to the man. He has helped more ordinary people escape financial ruin than almost any voice in the last 40 years. But his system treats the symptom. Solomon was operating on the cause. And the difference between those two things is the difference between managing a wound and closing it. Let me trace it back to the source. Solomon inherited a kingdom and turned it into the wealthiest state of the ancient Near East. The text records his annual income as 666 talents of gold. Convert that. A talent was roughly 34 kilograms. That is more than 22,000 kilograms of gold flowing in per year. Call it 25 tons. Now here is the part that matters for you. Nowhere does the record show Solomon borrowing to build the temple. He accumulated first. He contracted labor and materials against reserves he already held. Cedar from Lebanon, gold from Ophir, stone quarried and dressed off-site so the construction made no sound. He built the most ambitious project of his age as a lender's position, never a borrower's. And that is the whole teaching hiding in plain sight. The man who wrote, "The borrower is slave to the lender," arranged his entire economic life to be the lender. Not out of greed, out of understanding which side of the transaction holds the power to decide. Why? Stop. Ask yourself, right now, on how many decisions in your life do you currently hold the deciding vote? Where you can live is limited by your credit obligations. Whether you can leave a job you hate is limited by the payments due next month. Whether you can take a risk, start a thing, walk away from an abusive boss, all of it filtered through the question of what you owe. That is not freedom with a budget problem. That is a soft form of the exact condition Solomon named. The lender is making your decisions by proxy, and you are calling it adulthood. This is not theory. This is arithmetic. And the arithmetic is merciless. Let me build the proof. 2 men, same city, same salary, $60,000 a year, same age, 30. The first man does what the culture teaches. He finances a $35,000 car at 7% over 6 years. He carries an average revolving credit card balance of $6,000 at 22%. He finances a little furniture, a phone, the ordinary furniture of a normal modern life. His minimum payments and interest bleed out roughly $900 a month before he has bought a single thing he actually wanted. Over 30 years, if he stays in this pattern, and most people stay in this pattern their entire lives, the interest alone, not the principal, the interest, drains something on the order of $300,000 from his hands into the hands of lenders. The second man refuses debt as a matter of doctrine. He buys a used car in cash, drives it 8 years, buys another. He pays the card in full every month, so the interest rate is a number he never actually experiences. That $900 a month the first man was bleeding, the second man invests it. Broad market index, historically averaging somewhere around 8% over long horizons. And I have to be honest with you, past returns guarantee nothing about the future. Markets fall as well as rise. And none of this is personal financial advice. But run the illustration. $900 a month, compounding over 30 years, lands somewhere north of $1 million. Same salary, same city, same economy. One man ends with $1 million position. The other ends with a lifetime of receipts. The gap between them is not talent. It is not luck. It is not a secret side hustle. It is which side of Proverbs 22:7 they lived on. The rich rule over the poor. The borrower is slave to the lender. And here is the part that will sting a little. Both of these men might sit in the same pew on Sunday. Both might tithe. Both might pray for provision with total sincerity. Faithful people stay poor all the time. And it is not because God abandoned them. It is because faith without the mechanical obedience Solomon described is a prayer aimed at a structure they refuse to change. You cannot pray your way out of a trap you keep signing yourself back into. Solomon gave you the door. Walking through it is your labor, not heaven's. Before I show you the second half of the machine, the part even Ramsey rarely emphasizes, do something for me. Tell me in the comments where you are watching from. City, state, country. I want to see how far this ancient diagnosis travels, and honestly I read them. One word is enough. Then come right back, because what comes next is where the whole thing turns. Here is the pivot. Everyone treats get out of debt as the finish line. Solomon treated it as the starting line, because the borrower being a slave was only half his teaching. The other half was the lender ruling, and Solomon did not say that to make you resent the rich. He said it to make you understand the position you are supposed to migrate toward. Look at Proverbs 6, verses 6 through 8. Go to the ant, you sluggard, consider its ways and be wise. It has no commander, no overseer or ruler, yet it stores its provisions in summer and gathers its food at harvest. Notice the specific detail. No commander. The ant is not driven by an external boss. It is governed by an internal principle. Store in the season of abundance so the season of scarcity has no power over you. That is the lender's mindset in miniature. Accumulate a reserve before you need it, so that when the hard month comes, you decide how to respond instead of a creditor deciding for you. This is the mechanism debt destroys. Debt eliminates your reserve. It takes the surplus that should have become your buffer, your ammunition, your freedom, and it ships it forward to lenders before you ever hold it. A man with 3 months of expenses in reserve is a different creature than a man with none. Not richer necessarily, but sovereign. There. He can lose a job and not lose his house. He can say no. The reserve is armor. Debt is the thing that strips the armor off and sells it for interest. And I want you to feel how old this warning is. 3,000 years. Empires have risen and fallen since Solomon wrote this. The technology of debt has changed. We have credit scores and buy now, pay later, and interest-only mortgages and financing on a pair of shoes. But the anatomy is identical. Pre-commit your future labor. Surrender your deciding vote. Wake up already owing. The instruments got more sophisticated. The trap did not change at all. Now watch how Solomon closes the loop, because this is the part that reframes everything. Proverbs 13:22. A good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. Read that number carefully. Not children, children's children. 2 generations forward, Solomon is defining the successful life as one that funds people you will never meet, and you physically cannot do that from the borrower's chair. The borrower does not leave an inheritance. He leaves an estate that gets consumed paying off what he still owed when he died. The average American dies with tens of thousands in outstanding debt, the exact opposite of Proverbs 13:22, an anti-inheritance. A debt that outlives the debtor. So the full architecture Solomon laid out, reading these 3 passages as one system, is this. Escape the borrower's position, because it forfeits your decisions. Migrate to the ant's position, because reserves make you sovereign. Then climb to the lender's position, because that is the only chair from which you can bless 2 generations forward. Problem. Ancient solution. And the modern application is not complicated. It is just uncomfortable, because it asks you to want freedom more than you want the things debt lets you have today. Here is where it gets interesting, though, and it is the objection I know some of you are already forming. But everyone uses debt. Businesses use leverage. Mortgages are normal. Are you saying all debt is evil? No, and neither did Solomon. Read him precisely. He never issued a blanket prohibition on borrowing. What he described was a relationship. The borrower is slave. To the lender. Voting. The danger is the power transfer, the surrender of your deciding vote. There is a real distinction between debt that buys an appreciating, income-producing thing under terms you control, and debt that buys a depreciating thing you cannot afford. The problem is that most people never make that distinction. They treat all borrowing as normal and neutral, and Solomon's entire point is that it is never neutral. Every loan moves the deciding vote. Sometimes that trade is worth making with eyes open. Almost always, in the modern consumer economy, it is made with eyes closed, and this is exactly the kind of judgment call where sitting down with a qualified financial advisor before signing anything is not weakness, it is stewardship. That word, stewardship. Sit with it for a second, because it is the hinge of the whole biblical view of money, and it is the thing our culture has completely lost. A steward does not own the resources he manages. He answers for them. The entire scriptural framing of wealth is that you are managing something on behalf of a higher owner, and one day there is an accounting. That reframes debt from a lifestyle choice into a moral failure of management. You took what you were entrusted to steward, and you pre-committed it to strangers for the sake of things that lost half their value the moment you drove them off the lot. Solomon was not being harsh when he used the word slave. He was being accurate. He was describing what happens to a steward who forgets he is a steward. And now I want to bring this all the way back to where we started. Because the thing about Ramsey quoting only half the verse is not a criticism of Ramsey. It is a diagnosis of us. We love the first half of freedom, getting out of debt, the cathartic scream, the debt-free celebration. We are far less interested in the second half, the slow, unglamorous, decades-long discipline of migrating into the lender's position and building an inheritance for people we will never meet. The first half is an event. The second half is a life. And Solomon wrote the whole thing as one instruction because he knew that escaping slavery without building sovereignty just leaves you free and poor, waiting to be enslaved again by the next emergency. So here is your diagnosis, laid out plainly, one last time. If your income is spoken for before it arrives, you are in the borrower's chair, and the lender is casting votes in your life that should be yours. That is not a budgeting problem. That is a structural condition, and it has a specific cure that is 3,000 years old. Close the door on new debt. Refuse to sign your future labor away for things that depreciate. Build the reserve like the ant, in the season of abundance, so scarcity loses its power to command you. Then, over years, migrate toward the position where your surplus works for you instead of against you, until you reach the only chair from which a good person can leave an inheritance for their children's children. It is not fast. Solomon never promised fast. He promised true. And true is worth more than fast, because fast is exactly what the lender is selling you. I want to leave you with this, and I mean it as a prayer over your actual finances, not a poetic sign-off. May your eyes be opened this week to the specific place where your deciding vote has been sold. May you find the courage to stop signing it away. And may you begin, even with the smallest reserve, the slow migration out of the borrower's chair, so that a year from now you look back at today as the moment the machine that ran your life quietly changed hands, and the hands were finally yours. Go read Proverbs 22:7 tonight. The whole verse, both halves. And when you get to the word slave, understand that Solomon was not exaggerating. He was warning you, across 3,000 years, about a contract you may have signed this morning without reading it. The good news is that the same book that names the trap also holds the exact instructions for walking out of it. You just needed someone to show you the second half of the verse.